After 3 years, remote work may soon be a memory for employees at several companies. Boo, hiss, say it ain't so. Of course, we want to talk about remote work, hybrid, and on-site. There are benefits to all, but it comes down to being a personal choice. Welcome to Tip That Scale, the podcast where we discuss the world of work, the job market, and everything in between.
Let's talk about remote work.
Let's talk about remote work. We should talk about hybrid as well. We know remote work has been around for a long time. I have friends who've been working remotely for decades. It's interesting to see how companies now are so anti-remote. You need to come into the office, and how it's causing some tension.
I mean, I have my own theories regarding that. A lot of it has to deal with commercial property taxation, revenue generation. Also, organizations don't necessarily want to have, how do I put this? Organizations currently are okay with a high turnover rate. And what I mean by that is we kept hearing it even when we were at our last job, do more for less. We're going to have to make do with what we have because they don't necessarily want to have to deal with unemployment. So one of the easiest ways to make it more difficult for a person to get their job done or feel like they belong in a location is if you put them in a setting that may not necessarily be conducive to their success. There's a lot of different things going on right now. In regards to work from home, hybrid, on site, me personally, I don't mind the hybrid setting. I love the work from home setting because it allows me to do the things that I need to do while I'm being productive for the organization that I'm working for. Complete on site, I can do that, but allow me to come in on times that are not where I'm forced to give up an hour and a half to 3 hours of my day just sitting in my car trying to get to where I'm trying to get to. That's my biggest problem from working on site. Well, one of two. Think about it. I mean, the majority of your time, the amount of money that you're wasting on gas, the amount of money that you're wasting fighting traffic, the safety concerns of driving in traffic in the first place. It's a stressful situation, even when you're trying to get to work. And by the time you're done with work, you're so drained that you have to go back and fight in that same level of traffic. But if you allow me to come in, let's say 10 o'clock, I'll still be working for the first 3 to 4 hours of that day. But I come in at 10 o'clock where I'm avoiding traffic. It only takes me 15 minutes to get to work versus an hour fighting in the traffic. And same thing, I'll leave a little bit early so I can avoid that stuff. And then I can get home and I'll still continue to work until a certain period of time. Here's the other thing, though. Most organizations have realized that you're far more productive working from home than coming into an office setting because there's cooler talk. You know what I'm talking about? I used to have a colleague tell me he would work 4 hours out of the day, and he was an AM, right? An account manager. He would work for 4 hours out of the day, and then the other 4 hours, he would just either go to Buffalo Wild Wings and play that tee golf or whatever that game is, or he'd go to a pool hall. He's like, man, our jobs only take 4 hours of the day. He goes, I could spend the other 4 hours sitting in the office boo-booing around with people that I don't really care to talk about, or if I'm going to go do this or do that.
When you say he's an account manager,
It
was
could be
he in
business
sales?
development.
Because
Yeah.
sales is a different beast altogether.
I do agree. And so that's the thing, though. There's a lot of wasted time and wasted effort when you're doing certain things, forcing people to come into the office. I get it. It's far less expensive for organizations to allow a person to work from home. But at the same time, a lot of these companies that are in commercial real estate, commercial property management are hemorrhaging a lot of money. The government makes a lot of money based on that, property taxes and all this other stuff. Now, when organizations aren't necessarily utilizing those, if it is less expensive for an organization to allow you to work from home or remotely or from anywhere, and at the same time, you're far more productive, so the output level is a lot higher while the cost is much lower. Why would they want you to come in? The positives far outweigh the negatives. Apart from, yes, you do have your bad apples out there, but why else would they want you to come in?
Well, first, you would have those bad apples, whether in the office or not in the office. I want to go back to commercial property. I do believe there are commercial property owners that are losing money because companies aren't buying real estate space. Sorry, not buying, leasing. If it's a lease, we're talking about something totally different. They aren't leasing that space. The other issue, companies that had lease space in 2020, let's just say they signed that lease in first 2020 or 2019 as a part
Mhm.
of their budget. And normally, companies don't sign a year lease.
Nope, it's 5 to 10 years.
Exactly. So what does that mean? Let's just say from 2019, if it's a 5-year lease, to 2024, and nobody has been in the office. Companies and accountants and financial people know how to write things off, probably already writing it off, but they're paying for space that no one's living in. Sorry, I've changed it to a home because that's what
Mhm.
I was thinking about.
It is, right? You're spending more
Right.
time doing that than you are at your actual house.
Exactly. So they were paying for space that there are no people in. That's a challenge. They're not just paying for space, they're also paying for all of the utilities as well. And if they have a property management company that has built in the cleaning service, they're paying for cleaning service that people don't even have to clean. I would put that one as number one more so than the high turnover. I do believe finding a way to get people to just quit, even though
Mhm.
they say they don't want people to quit, but finding a way to get people to quit.
A lot of people don't really care about the money. They care about their health. They care about their well-being. They care about their mental health, their mental stability. If an organization isn't willing to give them that and they're working them like a dog, they're not going to stick around.
They care about being able to make the choice based on what they want.
The people that are running a lot of these companies, their mindset, then why don't we have any organizational loyalty? It's because they grew up in a different generational time era.
I've seen some of these leaders and they aren't necessarily part of that group, but what you said, they have the mindset of it. That's what's been transferring from generation to generation. It's that executive leadership. I'm not going to say leader, executive manager mentality of work, 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 task, 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 do as I say. It's not necessarily the generations because there are a lot of 40-year-olds. There are even some 30-year-olds that
Yeah,
have
yeah,
that
yeah.
mentality. So it's a mentality more so than the generation.
I'm not putting all this entire group of people. I'm talking
Yeah,
more
yeah,
about
yeah.
that mindset, that trend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about what all the people are fighting for right now and what they were fighting for 10 years ago and what they were fighting for 20 years ago and what they were fighting for 30 years ago. There's a big difference. Inclusivity, equality, place of belonging. Why do I want to work here if you don't follow or my ideals don't match up with your ideal? There's a huge importance on that right now for a lot of people.
There's this belief that's going on right now that it's an employer market and it's not an employee market. It's nobody's market. Because if it were an employer market, you wouldn't have this backlash from employees on returning to the office. But a lot of people think, oh, well, it's an employer market. Yeah, no, because a lot of companies right now, their brand is hurting. They have already gone through a number of layoffs. Now they're trying to get people to come back to the office. And here's the issue. And I'm glad that I spoke with Claire on our last episode about communications and PR, because a lot of companies are hurting with their PR. People collaborate better in person. Well, what have they been doing for the last 3 years? Oh, we want people to come into the office for culture. Do you know what culture is? I would prefer that companies just be very open, and I say companies meaning executive managers, be open and honest about why. If it's a money issue, tell people it's a money issue. The other thing I want to mention about remote work is, have you asked your employee base what they want? You were talking about high turnover. I think what's happening is companies laid off, and I would be interested to see for some companies how many people they laid off that were remote, and now they can come back and they can hire local, because we both know we've seen a lot of job postings out there that say remote work, and then you get into the meat of the job description and the job posting, and it will say remote work within the Chicago region, within the Los Angeles region, within the metro area of Dallas. So you're not talking about remote, because our view of remote means if I were in Abu Dhabi, that's remote. Remote within a geo, that's not
Hmm.
necessarily remote. You really want someone in the geo. So be honest about it.
Well, again, why would they want somebody in that geo? It's because they might plan on bringing
Because
everybody
they
back in.
they already plan on it.
In regards to work from home, remote, hybrid, whatever, I would love remote work from home. I like hybrid. I prefer it over on-site. Now, it doesn't mean I won't do on-site. Honestly, it's very difficult for anybody to give you 100% when they're coming on site. It's like when you go hire a contractor to build a house. Hey, I need you to build this house for me. You don't go run up to the contractor and go, I need it done in 6 months. Contractors are going to look at you and be like, listen, man, get in line.
And tell you, well, what is it that you want done? Here's the time frame that it will take to get it done. I go back to the engagement survey. I'm interested when executive managers talk about engagement. Oh, we are really focused on employee loyalty. We focus on employee retention. We like employee engagement. Well, part of that is understanding what employees want. And granted, a big issue now is executive managers don't want to be dictated by their employees, by their frontline. That's a big portion as well. If a company is really looking at remote, number one, you can't paint it with a broad brush. Design your remote work policy based on what people do. There are some roles within the company that don't need to be in the office. And also ask. This is what I saw on LinkedIn. It was a comment from a business coach who was talking about remote work. He was working with an executive leader, and the executive leader said, well, can we just meet? The business coach said, he's a perfect example of why remote work doesn't benefit people. Broad brush. The funny thing about that executive coach, they work by themselves. If it really means a lot, ask what works for individual people. If you want to build engagement, if you want to build a company culture that works for the type of personalities, the fit, ask what works for most people. They like remote work. There are some that want to be in the office. They feel like that's where they have the camaraderie. There was a commenter that said, there's a study that says so many people were depressed during COVID because of work from home and remote work. Do you think it was because of remote work, or do you think it was because of COVID? This comment about camaraderie. People come into the office to hang with their friends and to go to lunch together. Oh, y'all don't have friends outside the office? Because I have friends outside the office. Now, I have met friends working for a company. I have cultivated long-term relationships outside of the office. Outside
yeah,
of
I
the
agree.
office.
Like, here's the thing. There's a saying: people that you work with are not your friends. I'm not saying, yeah, I'm not saying it from like, oh, you're just a negative Nancy, but it has nothing to do with that. You're 100% correct. You initially can meet that person at work, but what gives you a long lasting relationship is your activities outside of work.
Right.
Right.
Outside of work,
Can,
not in outside of work hours.
yeah, it's because of the interest that you hold outside of work that develops those relationships. It's not about,
Right.
oh, I can get, this many people on a phone and I can recruit that. Who cares? Most people don't care about that. They care about who are you outside of work. I've developed some great relationships with people that I've worked with in the past. Perfect example. I had a leader from not this company, but the one that I worked for prior. I thought we were really good friends. That person reached out to me. I thought that we were really great friends. Sometimes he would call me outside of work and be like, man, you should come up here and come chill and stay at our house. And I was like, all right, cool. But then I left the company. And even after that, I was still a client for them. So they kept in touch. But as soon as I got laid off, I had conversations with this person for maybe 1 or 2 weeks. And then after that, complete silence. And it's been 7 months now, and I haven't heard from them a single time. Now, on the flip side of that, there was a counterpart of mine that I still have communication and conversations with to this day. We get together and I go to their house, they come to mine, we go hang out outside of work. And then one of the person that's up at the HQ, when she flies down, when there's time, we catch up about everything that's going on. Your culture is great, but the camaraderie, again, what kind of camaraderie is there? And then you said something else before where the executive leadership doesn't want to be dictated by their employee base. One thing that they need to understand is their idea got them started. The people that work for them got them to where they are. If organizations don't adapt to what this revolution is, they're going to have a hard time competing with the organizations that do. If you still keep trying to work under the same policies that you had and not paying attention to what your people are actually looking for, you're really going to have a hard time keeping those people, keeping that talent that you initially thought was your top talent, and then even attracting more.
In a video, a company owner was saying, people just don't want to work. They don't want to work hard. They don't want to stay late. They don't want to give everything. And Gary Vee said, it's not their company. You have an expectation on what someone wants to do based on what you're doing, but you're tied to it very differently. This is something for executive managers. This is what we've been seeing since 2020 with the Great Resignation and the Great Awakening and quiet quitting.
If you want individuals to go above and beyond and do more than what you've asked of them, people are capable of it. It's not that they're not. What about you? It's no longer a give and take relationship. It's just a take relationship. Even if it's not a
My
monetary thing, you can't pay those people as much as those people want. What else can you give them?
always ask what's important to the employee, because you can't broad brush again. Everybody's not going to want the same thing. We have different values, different interests. That's where we're going to have different needs. Let's talk about perks to get people to come back to the office. Fruit, lunches, the parties, ice cream bars. Don't do that. It's a nice to have, and it was a nice to have when people were working in the office, because it felt more like appreciation. Now executive managers are creating them almost as bribes. Come back into the office, we'll start giving you lunch on Fridays. Well, guess what? I was going to eat lunch anyway. Let's think about it from a financial standpoint. Does the lunch that you provide to employees in the office on site, is it equivalent to the cost of how much they are spending on gas? And the biggest thing is the time. Now, I want to say this. If people want to work from the office, cool, great. It's definitely available to you. However, from the executive managers and companies that are saying, no, we're moving back to on-site, I just want you to know from a branding standpoint, you will have employees. They may not be happy employees.
I mean, again, that see, I can agree and I disagree with it at the same time because, like you said before, there are people that like going into the office, but like,
Right.
let's not go into happy, but let's go more into productive.
No, I think both are important. I think
Yeah,
happy is definitely important because happy ties into productive.
true. Studies have shown there is a strong correlation in regards to a person's mental awareness and stability on how productive they are. You do have those people that work from home and don't really do anything and doing other things than what they're actually getting paid to do. Force those people to come in. And if you really want to gauge, set a test group environment. Don't tell them it's a test group. If you want to start off even as a hybrid environment and take a look at the days that those individuals are coming in, how productive are they? Every time I went into an office, people wanted to come talk to me, and it was keeping me from actually doing the things that I needed to get done. I would have to shut myself into an office and lock the door. That doesn't mean I'm closing myself off from the rest of the world and not wanting to talk to anybody. It's just that I have time that I can talk to you and time that I can't.
For people who are remote and they aren't working, take the steps to either have them improve or change or look for another opportunity. I see the benefit of remote for sure. I see the benefit having worked on site. I see the benefits there. But this can be challenging for people who are outgoing like me. And I tend to talk to a lot of people during the day. I'm productive. I can get it done, and I can not just get it done, I can go above and beyond. But I'm also going to engage with people. I'm going to go to people's desk. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to talk to them in the kitchen while we're getting coffee. I'll talk to them outside. And I will say that was challenging for several of my managers because they're
Mhm.
seeing me talking, and to them, I'm not, these are action oriented managers, by the way. They see me talking and they can't quantify that. They can't equate that with positive outcomes. I didn't prove anything to them to think that way. She's talking. Why is she at her desk working? Well, first of all, you went to the negative side. You could have said, oh, Nicole's talking to Tiffany. She must have gotten that report done. What we haven't talked about really is the micromanaging piece of Onsite. That's a
Well, that might
huge,
be the other thing that they
people
don't
don't
know
want
how
to
to
be
lead.
micromanaged.
They don't, and that's the other thing is that a lot of these executive lead,
Managers.
yes, they they don't know another way of leading groups of people.
Right.
It's not that they're not capable of it. It's just that they just didn't learn how to do it. I mean, they might not be capable of it. I don't know. I try to give
I
people
was
the
going to
benefit
say
of the
that.
doubt,
Yeah, they may not be
but
capable of it, and they just know how to manage one way. And the only way they can manage is if people are there and they can see what they're doing instead of actually trusting who you hired to do the job. And if they aren't
see
doing
that
the job, then
that gives me
you
another
make
level of
changes.
questioning. What exactly are you? If you're watching people all day long, what is your
What
what
are
are you
you
are you doing?
doing?
Your yeah, what's your
Right.
job?
Yeah.
That would drive me crazy. If I had to sit over somebody's shoulder, if I have to watch over you and you do your job, why are you here?
You just said it. That's the whole point of remote versus on-site. If I have to look over you at all times, why are you here? If I don't, you don't have to be here. And
And
it
why do
and
you
it
why
is
why do
it's
people
trust.
enjoy that? Well, I mean, trust, yes, it's one thing, but who gets enjoyment of that?
Enjoyment of looking over people and watching them.
Yeah, man. I mean, like,
Micromanagers.
inspire your people to the point where they don't have to do that.
A lot of people haven't been taught that though. We'll see more companies go back to in person and in the office. And I just see it because of the reasons that we already outlined, the cost of leasing, all of the additional expenses with actual office space, even micromanaging to a certain degree. It's unfortunate though. Some companies are doing it and doing it well.
Even if your team is remote, hybrid, or whatever work environment you're trying to create, get to know your team members and understand why they do what they do and give them a sense of purpose based on their why. Once you understand that and you're able to adapt and work around what they're trying to accomplish in their lives and who they're trying to accomplish it for, cater to that, and you'll see that person work 10 times harder.
Get to know them because they may not tell you their true why, but get to know them and then understand what's important to them. A number of people enjoyed working from home and remote work because it gave them the opportunity to be with their kids. They could turn off the computer and actually take their kid to their baseball game or their dance recital or whatever, versus being in traffic or trying to leave early with the manager saying, well, why are you leaving early? This is what I find interesting. When companies say we're a family, but they don't
Mhm.
understand and they don't acknowledge nor do they support how you support your real family. Look, someone let the genie out of the bottle. And now, this fight, this conversation, this challenge about remote, hybrid, or on site will continue to play out. But I believe we all have a positive remote work experience. I know I have my own. What do you think? Make sure to let us know. And also, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to Tip That Scale wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to like and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And you know what? Stay tuned. We may even be on Thread.